linking objects and setting the pivot for objects, both of which are important so that our tank, or whatever it is, will animate right, move together, all the parts will move the way that we want. Now, the tank that I've got here is partially set up, and then I've left some parts undone. The first thing that you want to do is you want to check for the pivots to be in the right spot. Inevitably, as we build these parts and pieces to our tank, the pivot is put somewhere by max, usually wherever the primitive we started with pivot is. But that may not be where we want it. So for example, this big piece here, which holds the missiles in place, you can see it here. Actually, let's do this big piece here. This big piece here that holds the missiles in place, its pivot is right in the center. You can see here by the transform. It's right there. We can see the pivot. And so if I rotate this, you can see the transforms are going to radiate out from that center piece. But we don't want this piece pivoting in the center. I want it to pivot over here where it hooks onto this piece of the tank. So the pivot's actually going to be right about that piece, right about there. The way we do that is we go over to Hierarchy, click on that, Effect Pivot Only. The pivot will show up as these big thick arrows here. You can see one right there. And the transforms will usually be right smack in the middle of pivot, unless you've done something really strange. All we need to do is grab the transforms, not the pivot itself, but the transforms, and just move the pivot over until it's in the spot we want it. And it's not unusual to have to do this for a whole lot of objects, but it's important to keep in mind what the parent object is going to be of everything else. What that means is I know that the pivot for this piece is screwed up. There's a little rail piece back here. I know the pivots for my missiles aren't correct because that's where the original pivot was for the cylinder I made the missiles out of. But I know that this piece and the three missiles, and by the way, these have symmetry on them. That's why you're seeing it grab the other side. I know that these pieces here are all going to be hooked to or parented to this main piece right here. Then this piece is going to hook to this or link to it. This piece will link to this. This piece will link to this. Okay? What we need to know is anything that's parented is going to inherit its parent's pivot. So I don't need to go and change all the pivots to everything in my tank. You could, but it's really not going to do you any good. What you need to do is you need to link and parent at the same time, just to keep things easy. I'm going to turn off Effect Pivot Only for a second. I'm going to grab everything that I know is going to be parented. In fact, I'll do this. I'm going to grab all of this area right here, and I'm going to isolate this so that we just see this main missile section right here. Okay? And let's see if I can do this with a maximized screen so that you can see what I'm doing. I think that'll work. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this piece, holding down Control, the three missiles, the little rail at the back. Those are all going to be linked to this piece right here. Now you see how the missiles over here are linking in the same way. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to smash this guy down so that we don't have symmetry on it. So we'll have to collapse everything down. There we go. You'd want to do this probably after you textured it, by the way, or else you're going to have to texture all of these separate. Now each of these is still the same piece. So what I'm going to do now is grab each one separate, grab its polygons, and say detach. So this one's going to detach to be, we'll call this missile 01. We want to detach That's correct. There we go. And this one here, we can attach that to be missile 02. You don't have to detach this one. This one's actually its own object now, but just to keep our naming correct. There we go. Get out of editable poly on that one. We'll go over to this one. We'll grab these right there. Detach that. Now you wouldn't have to do this if you didn't have symmetry, but most of you will have symmetry. And remember, do this after you texture them, or else you're kind of, you're just making twice as much work. Okay, turn off sub-object, and there's another one here, this one. There we go. Detach, where'd my detach go? I just went dead for a second here, where'd it go? Here we go, detach. This is going to be missile 05. And by just detaching this last one, you wouldn't have to because it's already on its own. But I just get to rename it easily this way. There we go. So now I have 6 missiles. This one's okay, this one's okay, that's okay. I'm just clicking around here to make sure everything else is all separate. Okay. So now I'm going to grab this piece and the missiles, and I'm going to link it to this piece right there. You'll see it blink. Now, when I grab this main piece here and I rotate it, everything will go with it. You can see my pivot's not correct, but that's because we haven't set it. I'm going to grab these guys here and that one, and we'll attach them to this. There we go. And now when I grab this and move it, you can see everything's going to be attached to that. Still no pivot set for it. This piece down here, I don't need to attach to anything because I've actually got it isolated. There's nothing to attach it to. But I do need to grab these two and link them to this piece here. Now all I need to do, I'm going to go to my front, well, it would be my left viewport, and I'm going to set the pivot points for each of these one at a time, these main holder pieces. Go here, affect pivot point, and my pivot point needs to actually come over a little bit. I think I'm going to put it right in the middle of this rail. We'll go over here, same thing here, we'll put it right in the middle of the rail. And let's go and check the side view of that. Here's one of them. I want it right in the middle. And here's the other one. We'll put it right in the middle. And now my pivot point is set up correctly so that when I rotate these, whoops, I'm still rotating the pivot point. Turn pivot point, affect pivot point off, and you'll see that now they'll rotate correctly. If I get out of isolation mode, I can then go down the rest of my tank and I'll attach this to this round piece here. You'll see them blink when it's all done. This guy's going to attach to the main tank body. I can get it to attach. There we go. And now, if I rotate this piece here, actually let me check the pivot on that because it may be wrong. No, you can see it's right smack in the middle of that circle. That's where I want it. I do want to check this one's pivot point, though. Where's the pivot point on that? See, this pivot point is off, though. I'm going to move it over, slide it down until it's right in the center of that circle it's attached to, which I know you guys can't really see very well because everything's yellow. But I've centered the pivot point to this circle because that's what I want this piece to move around. It's really just kind of which piece is hooked up to which piece. You don't have to worry about it too much, really. And now if I rotate this center piece, that one, everything on top is attached to it. Everything, well, I forgot some parts. Almost everything's attached to it. I forgot to attach these, which is a good lesson. These guys all link to this piece here. Okay, now everything works. So everything rotates now. That works. Each of these will rotate by itself. That works. That looks good. And what you're going to want to do eventually is make sure that all parts of your tank are hooked to the main body, so that when I pull on the main body, it doesn't leave parts behind. You can see everything I just linked up moved, but everything else doesn't. Now, down here in the rest of my tank, I can pretty easily just grab everything. Let's grab everything here in the front. Grab everything here in the back. Seeing if I got everything. That looks good. I'm going to deselect the main tank body because that's what I want to link to. And then I'm just going to link everything to the main tank body. Now, I can go back in later and attach things like treads. Will attach to tread holders. Tread holders will attach to the main body of the tank. It doesn't take too long once you kind of know what you're attaching. This is going to attach to the main body of the tank. I've got a back tread here that's got the same issue, so where's my treads here? I think that's the treads. They're going to link there. This piece here is going to link to the main tank body. No. And if you miss the part you want, just link it again. It's not going to hurt anything. I think that's right. And then this piece I want to open up, and I may need to, yeah, see, that's hinged wrong. So I go back to my effect pivot only. You can see that it's all wrong there. Let's go to a side view here, so I can see what I'm doing. And what I'm going to do is slide this right up here so that this tank kind of cockpit area is going to hinge right here, which is where I want it. And now when I rotate it, you can see that it's going to hinge right there in the front, which is what I want. So, oops, just hit the wrong button. Alright, we're going to scoop this guy back over. And we should, if we grab the main tank body now and move it, everything should go. If any parts are left behind, just figure out what they link to, and you'll be all set. I've got mine set up so that I can swivel these tank wheels. Well, no, I can't. Sorry, I forgot. I've got an issue with my treads here. But I do have this front part set up so that it can swivel. And I've got this top part set up so that it can swivel. And if you want your treads to swivel, which I didn't do, the trick is you need to link the path to the tread and then the path to the housing. That's the trick with the treads. But they'll move fine right now. So everything on our tank at this point is all hooked up. So that's how you do linking, unlinking, and affecting the pivot. The only other thing that's left is attaching an object. And you saw me detach the objects earlier, but the way that you would attach an object is under Modify, grab the object itself, and hit Attach. And then you can click what you want it to attach to, and it'll then be part of that object. Attaching isn't hard. It's just once it's attached, you have to use Element to get it detached if you want to go back and forth. And again, if you're attaching an object with a texture on it, you're going to create by default a multi-sub object. So for our objects we're doing, you may not want to get too deep into attaching objects, but if you wanted them to be all one mesh, you might have to, and then get in there and start cutting pieces and welding pieces. Okay?